Good afternoon, and you are in tune to Lifelong Learners Talk Show. I'm your talk show host, Terrence Perry. Today we have an exceptional guest, very exceptional, Raushawna Price. And she's a leadership development coach. She's also a part of the Wake County public school system, and she's going to be talking to us this evening about work-life balance, leadership, and family. So we're gonna get right into the show in just a minute. I do want to shout out to my producer Amnon.
Hello.
Amnon,
Hey, Terrence.
and
How are you?
man. I'm good. This weather surprised me today. I was expecting it to be a little chilly, and I walked out with my hat and jacket on, and had to turn around and go back in the house.
Take your sweater off.
I need to. I had a hat and jacket on, and I was like, "Oh man, this is the prettiest day we'll probably have this week."
Yep.
But without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Raushawna Price. Raushawna, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am glad to have you because you say you are the giver of awesomeness
Yes.
through leadership development. So that's my segue into getting you to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and yourself as a leadership development coach.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I say I'm the giver of awesomeness because I believe everyone has awesomeness inside, and that sometimes when you're at work or at home with family, you don't get to let that awesomeness out. And that it takes a true coach sometimes to ask you the right question so that you have a great answer inside and you've got to dig for it. And once you dig for it, it's there and you can bring that awesomeness out. That's what I love doing, helping people grow and helping them achieve their goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say you do you're a leadership development coach. You're involved in teaching, training, speaking. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you intertwine all of those that package into the work that you do?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm a certified member with the John Maxwell team. And so John C. Maxwell's written over 83 books, and I read them when I was kind of younger in my career, starting out managing employees in a manufacturing facility. And then I just was like, I need to be able to help others and get good at this leadership thing. And so that's how I decided to get certified. And then throughout my career, I've always been in positions where I've either managed people directly or I've been the person that people want to come and talk to. And I wanted to be able to help and really not give people the answer, but give them an opportunity to think into their answer. Because I've learned that you get burnt out as a leader if you're the one always answering the questions.
So kind of lead us into the into your background a little bit as you've worked with the school system. You've been in a leadership role with the school system, director, talent acquisition, human capital development. So you've been in all those leadership roles, and you're probably still in those roles. But how do you I guess again intertwine those roles with the leadership development coaching that you've got through the John C. Maxwell training?
So I really try to bloom where I'm planted and allow others to bloom there too. So I intertwine them by offering classes to employees, specifically in HR, but then also outside of the work that I do in the school system. I help other leaders, small business owners, entrepreneurs, nurses, pastors, help them think into how they can be a better leader. Leadership doesn't have any kind of jurisdiction around whether it's in a school system, whether it's in a bank. It's just about how you show up. And for a lot of people, it shows up first personally, like being able to lead yourself. We see it in weight loss. We see it in physical fitness and what people decide to eat and the places people travel. That's all about leadership. Are you able to, when necessary, guide yourself to your next point or to your next step? And that's what I like to do.
Now, and I've also read a little bit about I guess some of the articles that you posted, and you so and one of the articles that I read that you posted was that irritates you is when people say, "But we've always done it that way," and you're
Yes.
just like, that's. So can you tell us why that kind of, I guess, grits your nerves a little bit, or kind
Yep.
of irritates you when you hear people say that? We've always done it that way.
Right. So I started posting on LinkedIn a few months ago just because I've encountered so many people that are saying they need support in leadership. And I thought, well, I'm always going through something. I'll take something from my life once a week and try to glean how I'm navigating good, bad, and the ugly. And so when people say we've always done it this way, it irritates me and it really just frustrates me because I believe in honoring the past, but I don't believe in that's the only way that we can ever do things. And so when I think about that phrase and the way that I've experienced it, it's been from people that are really trying to hold on or hold back progress and change. And not all change is bad, it can be good. And as a leader, you have to be willing to entertain the thought of change in order to get to where you want to go. And so that's why I wrote the article, because that phrase, it really does. I've seen it too many times where it just hinders progress. And for followers, like if you're a leader and you have followers and they want to do something different, when you say, I've always done it that way, or we've always done it that way, that just shuts people down. And then they fall back, and then you don't get the good ideas.
And I think you also said along those lines that when people they say that and they try to operate in that space, that they are either they don't like being uncomfortable when it comes to change. They don't want to change, and also you said that they're operating out of fear,
Right.
either fear of not knowing or fear of being stuck, and just fear, I guess, of not having new skill sets
Right.
to to move forward in their because like I said,
Yep.
change in life goes on.
Absolutely.
Um,
And it's really, so sometimes people say we've always done it this way because they think that's the only way to do it. That's what they know and it's been working, and so if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's kind of that mentality. But then there's also the fear of being found out. Like what happens if we embark on this change and people see my gaps or my weaknesses, or what if now I'm not as important? Then that's another way that people may use the phrase to kind of ward off the understanding that if we move forward, we might move to a place that I can't go. And so that's why sometimes when you hear that phrase over and over, or you encounter an organization, or even if you, for yourself, you're like, I've always done it this way, think about how you move past that. Or if you're in an organization, you may have to think about moving on because it may be the culture, and that culture can't be changed, or there isn't a will or a desire to change it, and you have to think about what's best for you.
that sounds that
Yeah.
sounds like the. Well, let me ask you this:
Okay.
Do as you've worked with the school system and you've worked with different members within the school system, different I guess the organization, have you encountered those I say teachers or staff members that are stuck in that train of thought with
Well,
the public school system as a whole?
I don't want to speak to that in terms of like the whole public school system. I can't speak to that.
Okay.
But what I will say is in all the sectors, private sector that I've worked in, public sector, it's the same type of person that is at that same place in their life. Whether they're an entrepreneur, whatever their industry is, if they get to a place where they're saying we've always done it this way, they're boxing themselves in
Right.
to not being able to think different. And that's not anything different than being a part of a school system, or being in a nurse's office, or being the next doctor themselves, right? Because even if you're a surgeon and you want to learn a new way of doing a technique, you have to be willing to think there's a better way or there's a different way.
And in the coaching practice, like you said, we do lead people to. We try to we try to get them to have a light bulb moment. Try to have an epiphany.
Okay?
So in saying that, how do you guide them to that
To their epiphany.
epiphany to see that that box, that they have that boxed in way of thinking and doing, and they want to stay stuck. Um, so what steps do we, use to guide them out of that frame of thought?
It's really the questions that you ask. And you, as a coach, you do a lot of listening. So I tend to start with my clients by just asking them, so where are you in your thinking? The worst thing that you can do is come into a conversation with someone and assume that they're in the same place they were in their mind and in their thinking that from the last time you saw them. So giving them a chance to start talking gives you the next question to ask in terms of, tell me a little bit more about that. What belief is holding you back? What experience have you had that makes you think that this is the way you have to go? Sometimes you project people forward into their epiphany. In 3 months, if you take this action, how will you be different? How will you know you're different? All of those are areas and ways that I like to ask questions as a coach to get people thinking into their next action or their next step.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, Amnon, are we still doing the live call in the chat room?
Okay.
So anybody that do want to call in today, let me give you the number. It's still 919. What's that? Yeah, the 518-9773. Again, that's 919 518-9773. We have Raushawna Price. She's a leadership development coach. If you have any questions or if you want to kind of pick her brain today, she's here to answer questions, concerns, to chat with you. So feel free to call in. Along those same lines, when we're talking about helping people out of their boxed in way of thinking, but also you said too, I think I read in another maybe article that you may have wrote, that you like to know what a person wants you to do.
Yes.
A lot of times when they're talking, and I guess you're listening, you're listening to hear what it is they want you to do, or say, or be. So can you kind of elaborate on what you meant by that? Just in general, you're listening to hear what do they want you to do.
Yes. So this happens where you start a conversation with someone and it goes in a lot of different directions. And I find myself having to ask the question, is there something you need from me, or what do you want me to do? Is there action? Because that helps me know if I'm just listening because someone needs to vent, that's a very different place. But I know I'm a problem solver. I like to help people solve their problems, either by asking them a coaching question, or if I'm not coaching, if I'm mentoring, I may say, this is how I've encountered this in the past, this is what I've done. But that's different. And sometimes frustration happens when you start a conversation or you're in a conversation and people want you to be different, but you don't know that, right? It happens a lot. You hear it with husbands and wives all the time, where all the wife wants is for the husband to listen and the husband wants to solve the problem. That's because the understanding of what I need from you or what is needed isn't clear. And that's why I always say you can stop and pause a conversation and say, hold on, before you go further, what is it you need me to do? How do you want me to show up in this conversation? If it's just a listening ear, that's great. I can be that. If you want me to think and listen and hold a couple of things for you to consider, let me know that. If you want me to give you my perspective, I can do that too. But you have to be clear with people so that the conversation doesn't feel like it's just wasted time or it becomes frustrating on either person's end.
All right, you just gave me another segue.
All right.
Into the work-life balance, that conversation, and that's gonna kind of lead me also into the conversation about marriage and relationships as well.
Okay.
But just in the work-life balance, when you are asked that question, I think a lot of times you say that's a question that you actually like to answer.
I do.
To talk about that work-life balance, and when people ask you, what does that mean? How do you balance, work life and marriage?
Right.
So,
how do I do it? Yeah. I like the question because I think it's misleading. There isn't a such thing, in my opinion, as balance that is static. right? Like balance, if you think about it, and the analogy I usually try to use is when we think about a tightrope walker. When you think about a tightrope walker, when they're on the rope, they look like they're really still, but they're not. Their muscles are moving so fast you can't tell. They're balancing, but it's a fast twitch. And that's what I think work-life balance is all about. It's about ensuring that when you're doing one thing, when you're at work, that you can be all in at work, and when you're at home, you can be all in at home. Or if you have to do a little bit of both, where you're at work and then you're at home, or you're taking care of a phone call that's a work phone call, and then but you're also trying to feed your kids dinner, or you're trying to have a conversation with your spouse, you're able to do those twitches really fast, which is why the question you asked me right before around asking people what they need from you and
Right.
what do you want me to do is important, so that you can get faster at your twitch. If you know you're supposed to be listening to give an answer, then that's great. I can do that. And then hold on a second. Let me type up this email really quickly, or let me facilitate this meeting, whatever that is. Or there's times when your balance is going to be off, or it's going to be a scale that tilts really heavy towards home when you're dealing with, the illness of a parent or other things that you might be trying to balance. So then work might suffer a little bit. But then when that's over, or if you can find some help or relief, then how do you go be all in at work? So I think the understanding that balance is static is something to get over. It's dynamic, it's ever changing, and being able to change with it is a part of how you achieve success. That's my opinion.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
The tightrope walker.
Yes.
On that tightrope, I'm trying to entertain that
Yeah.
thought in the work. But to take you a step further, you also talked about you like to be a contributor of just life in general. You
Yeah.
enjoy life,
I do.
but also you like contributing to something that's bigger than you in life.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you interject yourself into um, things of that nature? Uh,
Yeah.
whether it be in your spiritual life, your practical daily life,
Mm-hmm.
just how do you interject yourself into contributing to, things
Mm-hmm.
outside of yourself? Uh,
Yeah. So for me, it starts with working out. So I'm a CrossFit person. I do CrossFit 3 days a week at least. That's the goal. So I like to lift heavy things physically and then mentally as well. And so that's one of the ways that I contribute. I think if you can push your body places that it's never been, then that gives you fuel to then be able to think differently and outside of the box and push your environment and those around you. I also believe in giving back and volunteering. So I'm active in my church. And I have a lot of conversations with people and help people that aren't my clients, right? They're not people that are paying me for my services. They're just people who need a listening ear. And I do that because sometimes it's not about the ongoing need or conversation. Sometimes people just want someone to know, I see you. I see the work you're doing. I see how hard you're working. And if no one else tells you you're doing a good job, I'll tell you you're doing a good job. One of the things I love doing is if I see a mom who's working hard, right, like at the grocery store, at the playground, when I'm out there with my kids, I'll say to her, you're doing a great job. You're a great mom. If no one else tells you, I'm going to tell you that. Because I know that sometimes that's missing, and you don't get the accolades for some of the work that you do, especially when it comes to parenting or being a good spouse. And so it's okay for someone else to recognize that and be able to shed hope or give that awesomeness to someone else.
give that awesomeness to someone else.
Absolutely.
All right. So
Yeah.
attitude versus emotion.
Yeah.
You talked about those two are intertwined but different.
Yes.
Attitude versus emotion. So
Yeah. So this
Okay.
question, it was really a question that was posed to me. What's the difference between your attitude and your emotion? And where do they start and where do they end? And it's a conversation that keeps coming up. So I like it because I truly believe that your attitude is what you think. Your emotion comes from your heart. But if you're able to really understand where they start and how they intertwine, you can be in charge and emotionally intelligent. So you don't have to be governed by your feelings, and always be in the emotional state, you can choose to have a positive attitude, and that will then affect your emotion. You can choose to be a person that says, you know what, no matter what circumstances I'm in, I choose to be happy, I choose to be positive, and go with that. And then, even if you don't feel it, if you choose to think that way, then your emotions will follow. And then your circumstances around you will change. If you're in a place where you're in a work environment that is negative, then be the positive energy. So choose to walk in and be positive, and don't let anybody change that. And then what will happen is other people will see you being positive, and they're going to do one of two things. They're going to come up to you and say, so what's wrong with you? Why are you so positive? And then you can say, I'm choosing to be positive. And then you've planted that little seed that they need to then think about what their choice is going to be. And you do that enough, and over time, you're going to change your own environment. And you won't be waiting for someone else to change it for you. You'll be the person. And your emotions will change because you'll be happy. That's how I do that. That's what I think.
That's attitude versus emotion.
Yes.
And like you said, that intertwines, but it also changes things. Just simply that there's almost, I guess, a mindset shift.
Yep.
From
Because sometimes it's a mindset shift, because sometimes, and I guess I've just experienced this myself, and I've been in enough conversations with people where people want their environment to be different, but they want it to be different because someone else is going to make it different. They aren't willing to do the work. And sometimes you have to be the one to do the work, to start the change. It's like if you wanted to learn how to dance and you didn't start dancing, sometimes that's how you get started. You just dance. And then once you get started dancing, you figure out, okay, it's not my arms that are the problem, it's my legs that are the problem, right? Or maybe it's a little bit of both, but you have to get started.
So, Amnon, have you started dancing?
I've always been dancing.
Good.
Okay.
Dance on.
Well,
Absolutely.
let me guide you into the segue of talking about. Let's talk about marriage and relationships.
Okay.
And I know you've just joined the cast of the Let's Talk Relationships
Yes.
show on Thursday evenings. So let me ask you, what do you see yourself as bringing to the table in terms of being on that panel? What can you offer the audience and the panel members when it comes to talking about relationships? So I mean, you have a positive attitude,
Right.
so I know you bring that positivity to that set. But just in general, how do you see yourself as a I'm gonna say bigger than life person on that platform to help others, just in guiding others to a positive relationship?
Yeah. So I think I bring I love being married, and I think marriage is a great thing, and I think that it's worth it. That's the voice that I bring to the panel. I've been married almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years in July. To my husband, I'm happily married. We've been together since I was 19. I'm not going to tell y'all how old I am, but we've been together a long time.
We can put the numbers together.
Yeah, you can put the numbers together. So when I think about the example of what marriage is, I believe in it, and I think that it can work, but it takes sacrifice. I'm not going to say every day has been great, but I like him. I really just like who he is as a person, and that's what allows me to continue to love him. And I think that having that voice on the panel is important, so that when you go through the times where you have to maybe live apart because a career moves, which is something my husband and I had to do for 2 years, when you think about having to bring family and in-laws into the situation, which is what we do all the time, and I'm someone who loves my mother-in-law, and we have a great relationship. I think those are the things that I can bring. It's about the wins. It's about sharing. Like, I would love to share some of the tricks and some of the things that I do to keep those relationships with my husband, but also with my extended family. Like, we all have great relationships because, one, I've chosen that we will, and I continue to do things to make that happen. And that's what I want to bring to the panel is we don't need to be defeatist in the relationship. Like, it can be a win for everyone.
Let me ask you this too.
Sure.
I mean, even in the initial stage of the relationship.
Yeah.
Um, how did you know that he was the one?
So shout out to all my Aggies at North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride. So we met at North Carolina A&T in physics class, and
Physics.
yes, we're both engineers. So we're kind of nerds a little bit, but we enjoy that. We enjoy corny humor. Um, and we went on 3 dates, and I knew that he was the one. So we went.
First date, second date?
It was the third date. So the first date, he took me to Janet Jackson. So for all you guys out there, this is just a little plug. Go big. It's okay to go big. You can put it out there. It's okay to be vulnerable. The second date, we went to church. We went to revival, and it was great. And I knew he loved the Lord, and that was something that I valued. And then the last date, we went to dinner and a movie, and I was like, he's the one. I'm gonna marry him. And we've pretty much been together ever since, and we still love going on movies and going on out to dinner. So it works for us.
All right, so Janet Jackson,
Yep.
church,
Yep.
and dinner and a movie.
That's
that a
it.
recipe?
That's a recipe, I think.
Go big, like I said, a nice big concert.
Absolutely.
Step into the church, and then dinner and a movie, give you a chance to talk and cuddle, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's about knowing what you want. So I know we're not on the panel tonight talking about relationships, right? We're in the middle of the day, but I think it's about our understanding of, like I talked about even earlier in that leadership of self. You have to know what you want, and you have to be willing to go for it. And that's in a relationship, that's in how you decide to lead, where you decide to be vulnerable, and how you decide to be all in with people. And because we're all in relationship. If you're on a team, right? If you're on a team at work, you're in a relationship. It might just be from 8 to 5, but it's still a relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
And so being able to know what you want out of that is really important.
Okay. Segue into the mastermind groups.
Yes.
How do you see yourself as a leadership development coach and that of a mastermind coach?
Yes.
Well, a mastermind group. How do the two they come together and work?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work for anyone that want to be a part of a mastermind group? In your role as a leadership coach in a mastermind group, how do the two work?
So the mastermind group is really a safe space where people come together to talk about what it means to be a leader, the ups, downs, and the ins and outs, and then they leave with strategies because everyone is sharing. Just like today, I've shared a little bit about my experience that has hopefully added value to those that are listening. And so the mastermind group is a safe space where that happens. And so I have a way that you log on to my website and you can contact me to understand when the next mastermind group is going to come open, and then you can pick a slot and get in. And from there, as the facilitator, I ask the questions and create the safe space that then allows the learning to happen.
Okay. So can you just share with the audience how how they can get in contact with you through social media, emails, and such?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. My handle is Raushawna_Price. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Facebook, so you can message me to get more information about the mastermind groups and leadership development. And that's a part of what I like to do is not only host the mastermind groups, but some people say, Raushawna, I just want to talk to you. And so then there's conversations around, is it a fit? I only take on clients where it's a fit in the relationship, because the power of coaching is in the power that is granted between the client and the coach. So whether it's me or someone else, I would say to people, make sure that you're with someone who you trust and who can push you to be great.
So what size would you say a mastermind group should be starting out?
No more than 10.
No more than 10?
No more than 10, because you want everyone to contribute. In groups that are a little larger than 10, what happens is some people become bench warmers, where they come and they get a lot out of it, but they don't necessarily add value because they may think that, well, what I have to say isn't as important, or maybe they're newer in their leadership, and so they're like, well, I haven't done it to the scale that Raushawna has, so I'm not going to say anything. The value is in what you're able to contribute, because you just don't know how even one small nugget can help someone be better. So anyone who participates, one of the core beliefs in the mastermind group is that everyone says something, everyone contributes. And that's important. And as a facilitator, I hold people accountable to it as well. So it's like cold calling sometimes. I might say, Terrence, I haven't heard from you. What would you like to share today? Or tell us where your thinking is right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you also do, well, on your website, do you have the keynote speaking that you do? You also do lunch and learn workshops, and you facilitate in-house corporate trainings for
Yes.
organizations.
Yes. So what that looks like is depending on the size of the organization and the audience, that is scaled based on what the need is. So lunch and learns are normally about an hour, and that usually centers around a topic. So before I talk to anyone as a keynote speaker or as a lunch and learn, I'm asking questions of the key stakeholders. What is it that you need, or where are there some areas that you think that the audience needs to hear? And so that I like to tailor those speeches and those engagements, because it's important. It's not about just getting up there and me talking and giving a canned speech. It's about meeting a need and adding value. So I like to spend at least 15 minutes with key stakeholders to say, tell me about, at the end of this, if there's one action that you want people to take, let me know that. Or if it's to inspire people, how will you know they're inspired? If there's an area of need, it's understanding, is this one need going to be fulfilled in a speech, or is there something that we should be thinking about for an ongoing relationship?
Okay. If you could take a group on a retreat within the next 90 days, what group would you want that to be, and where would you want to take that group to on a retreat?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would probably take a group to the beach, a group of leaders. I'm not going to say men or women because I don't think that that matters. I don't think it's about age, but people who see themselves as leaders and they have followers. So you can say you're a leader and not have followers. So you have to have followers. That's important. I'm just going to pause right there because sometimes people say I'm a leader, but they don't have anyone following them. So they're really not. And so it would be a group of leaders that have followers, and they're trying to get their followers to move in a new direction, and they're struggling to figure out how they do it. And I would love to take those leaders on a retreat to the beach and talk about how we bring awareness to maybe some of the areas that they're not demonstrating enough change or enough growth for their followers to really trust them. And I think that going to the beach is helpful because you have to trust that water and be willing to be all in with it if you're going to get in, but also understanding your surroundings. And sometimes as a leader, understanding your surroundings, we get lost in what we thought it was, and it's ever changing. And so being able to consider that as a leader is really important. How do you navigate your team while the water is ever changing is really important.
Well, awesomeness.
Yeah.
Awesomeness. You are, like you said, you are the giver of awesomeness, and you exude that through. I mean, even in your conversations, in your thought process, that's what comes out. So, I have to say that you are the giver of awesomeness. and,
Thank you.
And I just want to thank you for being here this evening. I've got a lot from this conversation and just the few minutes that we've sat and talked. I'm gonna take that all in, because I'm a learner and a teacher all the time.
Right.
So I'm always learning from others and taking in, and I think from what you shared today, it's something I can take to heart, and hope the audience as well has gotten a lot out of what you said. So we appreciate you coming today. Feel free to come back to the show anytime. Let me ask you
All
this:
right.
Is there any events that you have coming up anytime soon that we need to be aware of?
Yep. So I am right now. I've got a mastermind group that is starting in April. So if you're interested in getting in and learning more, then go ahead and message me on social media so I can send you the information. That is a mastermind group that is starting. There is a cost, so I'll give you all of that information as well.
All right, it sounds like a plan to me. I definitely want to be a part of that mastermind group.
All right.
So I'll be in contact with you. Again, I appreciate you coming this evening and look forward to having you back anytime. I want to thank the audience for tuning in. This is Lifelong Learners. I'm your talk show host, Terrence Perry. Thanks, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.